Hi friends, it's me Srinivas. So today's topic is testing Java and Spring Boot apps. So basically, first with respect to an introduction, we will go ahead and then see introduction to testing softwares, yeah, common testing frameworks of Java, and so with respect to the common testing frameworks, we will take an example with respect to three frameworks, and after that we will try to cover that. Okay. First one is JUnit 4. Okay, and after that, how do we migrate to JUnit 5? Okay, and then Mockito, and then the wire mock. Moving on with respect to introduction to the testing software. Okay, why is that I have to go ahead and then write the test to test the code again? I mean, writing a code to test the code. Okay, what does that I'm going to achieve? Okay, it improves software quality, proves that the code is doing what you think it should be doing as per the business use case. Widely accepted as an industry standard. Okay, you can change the existing code with the confidence. What does that mean? Okay, you have like with respect to your requirements, you have completed your coding, and after that deployed it onto the any specific environment. Then QA comes, and after the QA start testing the application or the code. Okay, and then he finds some issues and raises that. Okay, next procedure is that you go ahead and then fix that. Now the thing is that when you are fixing that, you should not go ahead and then introduce a new bug into the system. So first thing is that I'll write my code to improve the quality of the software. Okay, second thing is that to regress the code, which to make sure that you are not introducing any new bug into the system. Okay. Moving on to the terminologies with respect to an testing. Okay, first what we can think of code under test. Okay, what does the code under test stands for? It's a code or the application which is in test. It's nothing but a code under test. Okay. Now moving on, unit testing. What do you mean by the term unit testing or an unit test? Yeah, code returned to test the code under test is nothing but a unit test. Okay. Now, why it is designed to a specific section of a code. Okay, we are talking only with respect to unit testing the specific section of a code. Okay. Now, what do you mean by the term code coverage? Code coverage is nothing but number of lines of the code tested. Okay, that we can call it as a code coverage. Okay, how much I can achieve the code coverage? Okay, I can achieve from 70 to 80%. Yeah. Oh, people are there like they go beyond 80%, but normally 72 to 80% is a good code coverage. Okay, now moving back, like telling that okay, how fast is unit testing? Yeah, now when you compare to unit testing, integration testing, and then functional testing, okay, we can call unit testing as very fast. Why is that so? I don't have any internal external dependencies. There is no database connection. Okay, no Spring context. I mean, without anything, I'm going to test only the specific section of the code. Okay. Now moving on to the integration testing, that's designed to test the behaviors between the objects and parts of the overall system. Okay. Now the scope with respect to unit testing is small. Okay, and then the integration testing is a broader scope. Why is that so? Because you are interacting with the different objects and after that parts of a system. Okay, let's take a scenario in an integration test. You are interacting with the database and after that fetching the data from the DB. Yeah, that is one thing. Or mm, when it comes to an API, you are interacting with any other third-party system and after that getting the data from there. Yeah. Okay. Now it is slower than the unit testing. Okay. Now moving on with respect to a functional test. Yeah. What do you mean by the term functional test? Testing the app with respect to a business scenario. Okay. And now when you tell this is like what we are trying to cover here over here. The functional all the functional test points are touch points are tested. Okay, like using a web driver, calling a web server, sending and receiving a messages, all the business requirements from keeping customers in a mind, we are going to test it. Okay, now there can be a different environments with respect to a functional test. Yeah, what does that mean? I mean, I can have some companies can have only dev and QA are using only the dev environment, or dev is using the dev environment, QA can use the QA environment. And then one more thing is that I'll be having a staging environment, or in some companies staging and UAT both are one and the same. Then I can have a production environment. Yeah. Moving on to the testing methodologies, I can go ahead with the TDD, test driven development, or BDD, behavior driven development. Yeah. Okay. Then moving on with respect to a common testing frameworks of Java. Yeah. First thing is that, okay, so I'll go ahead and then show you like what are all the different frameworks we have, and how is that I go ahead and then how can I go ahead and then achieve the uh, testing with respect to unit testing or the functional test. Yeah. First thing, like the JUnit, we can use it to test the Java applications, TestNG, Spock, yeah, and then Cucumber, Mockito, MVC framework, Rest Assured, Selenium, Zeb, and then the test containers. Okay. In this particular section, right, what we will be trying to cover is that JUnit, Mockito, and after that the wire mock. Yeah, wire mock I have not added over here. I'll add it, but those are the three things which we will be covering over that. Okay. Now, coming back to a brief introduction with respect to JUnit, with respect to all the frameworks. Okay, JUnit, it's a popular testing framework. Okay, basically people or guys are using JUnit 4. Okay, and which is like we have JUnit 5 also, and guys are tending towards 4 to 5. Our main focus will be on JUnit 4, and after that migration with respect to JUnit 5. Yeah. Okay. Then moving on to TestNG, it addresses the deficiencies which we had it in JUnit. Okay. Uh, and it is still popular, but much smaller. Okay. Now, what are all the things I'll be having with respect to TestNG and then JUnit? I'll be having a different annotations. Okay. Through the annotations, I'm going to drive my test. Okay. Moving on with respect to a Spock, okay, it's a testing framework in Groovy for testing Java. Okay, so what is the primary requirement? The guy should have knowledge of Groovy. Okay, and it follows the BDD approach, behavior driven development approach. Okay, it includes own mocking framework, okay, very popular where Groovy is used. Okay. Moving on to the Cucumber, it's a BDD testing framework available for JavaScript, Java, and Ruby. Okay, it's very popular in the Ruby or the Java community. Okay, uses Gherkin syntax. What does that mean? Okay, like given, when, then. Yeah, those are the syntax. Okay, now what we can call is that it's like a natural language, natural English like syntax I'll be having, and we are going to define, describe what and uh, how I'm going to do it. Okay, using given, when, then scenarios. Yeah, and after that we will do some kind of an assertions with respect to Cucumber when it comes to meeting the expected behavior with the actual value. Yeah, moving on to Mockito, it's a mocking framework for testing. Yeah, only does mocks. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, now take an example with respect to any of the scenario with from a testing perspective, or unit from a functional testing or the unit testing perspective. You have to mock someone. Take an example, you don't have a third party system. Okay, Now, how is that you are going to still go ahead and then do your work? You have to mock the third party in such a way that you get the response, and after that you can continue with your work. Okay. Need to use with any of the testing frameworks such as TestNG, and after that JUnit. I mean, I need to have a Mockito plus JUnit or Mockito plus TestNG. Yeah. Now, it is one of the top 10 Java libraries, very popular for testing the Spring Boot applications. Okay. Moving on to Spring MVC framework, it's a testing module found in the Spring framework, very versatile for testing Spring MVC controllers. Okay, it provides mock servlet environments used in conjunction with the testing frameworks such as JUnit, TestNG, or the Spock. Yeah. Moving on, the next one what we are going to see over here is the REST assured. Okay, it's a Java framework for testing RESTful web services. Okay, provides very powerful DSL for testing RESTful interfaces. Okay, can be used with Spring mock MVC. Okay, this test follows again the BDD syntax. Okay. Moving on to Selenium, the web it is basically used for web browser automation. Okay, allows you to write functional test against the web applications. Okay, only web browser automation. Anything which is rendered on the browser, we can go ahead and then automate. Okay, with respect to Selenium, we need to use a testing framework such as JUnit or TestNG or Spock or Cucumber. So in integration with the Selenium. Okay. Moving on, Zeb. Zeb is again a Groovy based browser automation. Okay. Uses Selenium under the covers. Has jQuery's page element selectors. Okay. Need to be used with the test framework, very popular to use with a Spock. Yeah. Then moving on with respect to our test containers, allows you to launch desktop containers from JUnit test, allows you to start databases, message blockers, etc. for integration and for functional testing. Can be combined with Selenium for testing web applications. Okay. Basically, we are saying a brief introduction with respect to all the frameworks which are available in the market. Okay, almost 10 I have listed it down. We can still go ahead and then add some more into this particular lesson. Okay. Moving on, Mockito. That's the most popular mocking framework for testing Java applications. Okay. Now, what is Mockito? What are the types of mocks which will be available? Okay. What are Mockito annotations, terminologies? Okay. How is that I go ahead and then integrate with the JUnit? Okay. Now, these are all the sections. We will see it in the next sections with respect to Mockito. And then, what is a wire mock? Wire mock is a simulator of HTTP based APIs. Okay. Now, in the next section, we will see like introduction to WireMock, features, standalone, how I can go ahead and then use WireMock as a standalone application. What are all the recording features which is available over there, and then the test performance. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, guys.